Can I have everybody's attention? We're going to start in about 60 seconds here. So grab your goodies and come sit down. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bobby Johnson, and I'm honored to be today's MC for this event for my dear, dear friend. And just want to welcome you, or welcome you back in some cases, to San Bernardino Valley College. And actually, it's a little bit of a homecoming for me. About half a century or so ago, I used to teach here in sociology in the night school, and way back when Bob Turley was my chair, and Judith Bias was night school dean. Yeah, don't say how many years, because I don't remember and don't want to. But anyway, today we're here to celebrate one of our very own. That's why we all know each other here pretty much, is we've all worked together through the years with Marta. Marta was raised on the west side of San Bernardino, which I always consider the authentic San Bernardino. And she was a graduate of Valley College here and a distinguished alumna from the college. She was the original editor of El Chicano and the founder of the George Brown Legacy Project. She was also a civil rights advocate, marched with Cesar Chavez, and she was, among other things, a loving mother, sister, and friend. Today we're here to celebrate the one and only Marta Macias Brown. Okay, for efficiency's sake, we're going to do family and electeds rapidly here. If you're a member of the family, would you please stand now so we can recognize you and wave at you? And that is great. And if you are a elected official, could you stand and wave your hand, and we'll see how many of you. There we go. Yeah. We have, incidentally, 2 trustees from the San Bernardino Community College Board here today, and a chancellor. We're doing high-powered stuff today. Yeah. On behalf of Marta's family, I wanted to thank you for being here. It means a lot to us. We're a large circle that feel like family sometimes, and we're glad that you joined us. Before we continue, I'd like us to please take a moment for a moment of silence to remember our beloved Marta. Thank you. I'd like to thank Gloria Macias Harrison for asking me to be the MC today. I told her I really thought I should be an adjunct sister, maybe, but we'll be MC for now. I first met Marta during my days working in the office of Congressman George Brown, Jr. I worked for him for 15 years until his death. He was my mentor, my friend, and Marta and I worked alongside each other. And she was a dedicated community activist who touched the lives of many with her kindness, passion, and an unwavering commitment to social justice. Marta's family invited a few people who knew her best to talk about her remarkable spirit and her lasting impact. And the first person I'd like to invite to the podium is the congressman representing the 41st District in Riverside County. And Marta was very close to Mark, a big supporter through the years. The congressman was a supporter from his very first run for Congress, and was very proud of him. And so I'd like Mark to come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Well, I do feel like it's Old Home Week because there are so many people who are good friends, and I haven't had a chance to see you since the pandemic. I see Gloria and Bobby and just so many folks that used to work for George. And let me just say from the outset, I want this to be about Marta, because so much of what I think about is I think about George, but George and Marta were kind of a package, weren't they? I mean, it's like you thought of them together. You would go to the labor breakfast, which we used to have every Labor Day. There were these long, long affairs, and there would be George and Marta in line to go to the buffet, and I would always catch up with them. And I was remember canvassing, and George had this problem because in 1992, when I first ran for Congress, there was a slew of people running in the primary, and of course that's trouble for an incumbent member of Congress. And I think Marta was pretty protective, but I remember knocking on the door and on Prince Albert and didn't realize that they lived on Prince Albert, and I actually was canvassing, and somehow I got the endorsement like 5 days before the election in 1992 from George. And that's right, he was a supporter from the very outset. But let me say that the first person who I called for an endorsement in 2012, which would be my third run for the Congress, and I felt that I had a good chance, but I wanted to make sure that I had somehow the blessing of the Brown legacy. And the first person I called to get an endorsement, I felt it was important, was Marta. Because I felt that Marta's endorsement would communicate so much to the activist base, and we hadn't had a Democratic congressman in Riverside or congressperson in Riverside for such a long time. And the last connection that we had, well, and I'll say it was, Joe Baca was the congressman for this area over here. I mean, all right, well, whatever. So, but for Riverside, we hadn't had one, and he was so beloved, and Marta and George were both so beloved, that I felt that her endorsement would mean a lot as we announced on the first day who was supporting us when we rolled it out. And indeed, Marta graciously said, yes, I will endorse you. She did ask me about what I stood for, a few issues, but she had known through our long relationship. And I have to say, she was a fixture in the office. I knew that it was the days in which you could hire your spouse, in congressional. You can't do that anymore, but it was very clear that she was definitely part of the operation, and she was close to the member. And the fact that George, married somebody who was an activist, married somebody of the Latino community, which wasn't in the majority then. It was a significant part of the electorate, but it also was, clearly born out of affection and love, but also it was an homage to the community, that he said, you know, I need to be closest to the people who need my help. And Marta, you know, was that emblem in that partnership. And I have to say, all those years, part of who raised me and taught me a lot of things was also Bobby. So, I mean, this is about Marta, but while Bobby's here, I just want to say that we spent many long minutes on the phone where she taught me a lot of things as well. So, to the Marta Brown Legacy Project, I've been attentive to helping Hans whenever Hans says we could use you to come and talk to the folks about, you know, and raise some money. Of course, that's a priority for me as well. So let me just say in closing, the first experience that I had being a member of Congress and being a member of the Science and Technology Committee was to sit in that committee room and to see this avuncular gaze of this sort of, I would say, mirthful little, you know, it was a smile, a benevolent smile of George Brown over the committee room. And I felt this connection. And to this day, I ask myself, you know, when I'm in a tough situation, when it's a hard vote, think, what would George do? And, you know, what would George do is an extension of the people he chose to keep around him, the values that they reinforced when it was tough for him to make a decision. What do I stand for? And, you know, when you have a spouse like Marta Brown, you have a staff like members like Bobby and others who are around because they believe in you, you can't help but do the right thing. And to have a spouse like Marta, you couldn't help but stand on the right side of the issue. So, you know, those are my final thoughts. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I know that she passed during the pandemic, and it's so appropriate that we gather and to make sure that we remember all of the contributions she made in the legacy. And I'm going to be here for a while to kind of take in what else, all the other stories I don't know about her. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Ooh, there's my mic guy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Another one of George Brown's staff is here. We all went out into the world and spread ourselves around because we knew we had to do good things. And George would have an annual meeting every year. It was in Washington, D.C., and I would come, well, I used to be in D.C., and then I would come from the district. But one year, instead of giving us an outline of what he wanted to do for his mail program or something, he walked in and he said, go out and brighten your corner of the world. And then he walked out. And that was our, oh, okay, we'll do that. So Robert's been one of the warriors in that, and he also experienced the campaigns, which is quite an experience, but, and he's going to share a few words now.
Thank you, Bobby. Good afternoon, everybody. So, Marta Macias Brown. So, I actually first met Marta in my youth, right out of high school, when I interned in the district office of the late Congressman George E. Brown Jr. I always want to say the full name, George E. Brown Jr. Clipping newspapers. That's how long ago it was, literally clipping newspapers. And that's when my friendship and community activism started with Marta. Over the years, Marta was also my supervisor, mentor, advisor, and my political ally. And my trustworthy confidant for political cheesemith. I had the opportunity to work on the congressman's campaigns as a field director, and then I later worked for his legislative office in Washington, D.C. And leaving the IE for me was a big deal, and moving to D.C., because I had never lived outside of California. But however, what made it a bit easier was that Marta and the congressman actually lived right around the corner from my little apartment, my little studio in Washington, D.C., which brought me comfort. And those years in D.C. Marked the beginning of a journey with Marta, working on behalf of the values and issues we cared about, especially those issues that impacted our Latino community, from access to quality health care, education, and political representation. And Marta and I served on various boards together, such as the Casa de Mona Board of Directors. And the board, we would meet at 7 a.m. in the morning, I think on the third Tuesday of every month at Meet La Cafe. And Marta and I would sit at the end of the table so we could whisper to one another and brief each other about the latest in the community and in politics, political chisme. And the executive director at that time, and still the executive director, Esther Estrada, would often have to call us out and ask us to focus on the agenda. But it was during those years I learned the importance for community and public service, and I thank Marta for that. Gloria asked me to share an anecdote with you, and I chose one that is relevant today, especially because of all the issues we're dealing with today. And so it was the summer of 1999, and Marta Macias Brown was a front runner for Congress to continue the legacy of the congressman. And Bobby and I had been, and I think Anita too, we had been prepping Marta for a candidate forum in Fontana. And on the actual day of the forum, it was a difficult time for Marta, having just lost her partner. And when we drove to the candidate forum, it was rather quiet in Bobby's car. The four of us, myself, Marta, Bobby, and Anita, we were kind of just doing all we could to hold it together. But of course, when we arrived, Marta was greeted by many of her supporters and community friends. And I was still a bit nervous. Like I said, it was a tough time for Marta. And this is the first big candidate forum. But when Marta took the stage, she was amazing. Strong, compassionate, and clear on her vision about the issues she cared about then and that we continue to deal with today. From access to reproductive health care to gun control. And the only difference is back in 1999, it wasn't always so popular to be out in front of these issues. But Marta, a Latina from the West Side, she did just that. And I knew then at that candidate forum, win or lose the congressional campaign, that wasn't even important anymore. I knew Marta had an important role to play moving forward, and her work on behalf of issues that she cared about continued to guide her service for the next 20 plus years. Yes, I miss the community and the political Marta Macias Brown, but what I miss most is the personal Marta and all that she was on a personal level for so many of us. For me, it's not just that Marta was a true warrior for social justice and never backed down from a challenge. It's not just that Marta inspired so many to fight for what is right and just, no matter the odds. It's not just that Marta's legacy will live on in the many lives she touched and the positive impact made in our community. For me, what I miss most is her unassuming, her unassuming, compassionate, and comforting style, sometimes almost like a very regal style, that made so many of us feel good about ourselves. And from that, I have never forgot a very important lesson from simply watching Marta in action, and that is you don't have to be the loudest person in the room to be the most impactful and meaningful, especially for those that need a helping hand or voice. And that specific quality of Marta continues to guide how I treat, communicate, and mobilize others in my life, and I thank Marta for that too. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with us, Robert. Now it's my honor to welcome to the podium Marta's loving son, Miguel McQueen.
Thank you, Bobby. First, on behalf of the family, I want to thank everyone. I'm a mic in the hand kind of guy, so sorry, mic guy. I might walk around, and you're danger to let me have this microphone. I'm going to tell you that now. On behalf of the family, thank you, everyone, for coming today to honor my mother, who, as we talked about, during the pandemic, she passed away. It's been 15 months tomorrow, by the way. And as more time goes by, you process, right? You go through the day-to-day loss, and then you realize what it means to you, and you start to reflect, for me, you start to reflect on conversations or thoughts or feelings. And what I tell people is, as I see some of these pictures, it's interesting. I think about snippets of childhood. I'm sure the staffers at the office know that, I gave my mom a little bit of a hard time in high school, probably calling all the time and probably hearing her talk about me to them. But I think about that, and then I think about the later years, meaning later for me, as in getting done with college and trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do with my life. And I always think about my mom in that way, about the life that she has lived and the impact that she's had on everybody in this room, and how it continues to be something that is her legacy, is living through all of us. And my oldest brother Sam's here, my brother Armando and his wife Danielle. I know you guys know them very well, and my cousin William, my cousin Maria and Anita and Eileen. And who else did I have? Someone is that, obviously my Aunt Gloria, and Maria, I said that already, in your family. And we all knew my mom. I think she's one of those people that's like the glue, right? The connector, right? We all have our offshoots. We all have our things that we do as we raise our families and do the things we do. And we all are relatively have stayed local. A little bit later in life, people moved further away, but we were together on Christmas or holidays, and we still do those things. And you think about the person that's the glue, and that's my mom, right? Because a lot of us are crazy, and we kind of talk a lot and can be stubborn and very outgoing. But she was always the quiet and unassuming person, and I think I didn't get any of that. I'm more outgoing. But I do think, though, what I have a lot of pride in is the person that she has always been. And I tell my sons this, when she became the distinguished alumna here at San Bernardino Valley College, it was important for them to come to that event because the expression I use is that you come from someone. You come from people. You come from people who have a background in community service and being advocates for your community, of which I still live in. I was born and raised in San Bernardino. I still live in the city of San Bernardino. My wife's been a teacher in the district for 26 years in San Bernardino. I went to Valley College. My son right now is playing in a game here on campus here at Valley College. Third generation, of course, coming here, as did Sam, my older brother, and Armando, my middle brother. And we're from San Bernardino, and San Bernardino's us, and that's my mom. And I'm very proud of the legacy. When people ask me at work, what drives you? I've worked for the county, by the way, for 26 years, and I think about service for betterment of your community. Why do I do the things that I do in my career? It's because I'm focused on making the community better in whatever part I can play in that. And I think about that's who my mom was, and there's a lot of pride in that. And I spoke with my Aunt Gloria about today, about what I wanted to talk about, which I'm sort of an off-the-cuff type of a person. And what I wanted to have come across most is how much pride and joy I take in having had my mom be my mom. As she would affectionately call me her baby. When you're younger and you're trying to be an adult, you want to be called the youngest. But now that I have grown kids, I want to be the baby again. But I think about what she's done in the life that she's lived and how much pride I take when people find out all the many things that she was involved in as an advocate for many things. But more than anything, for her family, for the community, that's important to her. And it always has been important to her, and that's been instilled in me. We would talk politics too. And I'll kind of close on a couple of things. One, the other side of politics, our first part of our life, married to my father, Sam McQueen, the first 19 years were a struggle. Money was tight. The sacrifice. She was she was a working mom. She was out doing the things. We all can cook and clean and iron and sew, because if we didn't, we just wasn't going to happen. We all had to do what we had to do, and money was very tight. And then my parents separated and divorced, and then later on when she married George, Danielle will love this because she talks about this story, about how my mom grew up from humble beginnings and struggling. But even when she got married to George, and obviously the bank account changed, she still operated though. Remember that, Danielle? Like there was no money. I'm like, Mom, we've got some money. We're not rich, but yeah. And I always think about her because that's who she was as a humble person. It wasn't about all those things. And it was interesting, my life growing up, when my mom married George Brown. I was 17 years old. And it was interesting, my life I had. Everywhere I went, all of a sudden everybody knew who I was. Whether I was on campus here at Valley College or at UCR, where she used to run the Equal Opportunity office there, she would tell me sometimes, and Danielle knows this, oh, the chancellor saw you walking across the campus. I'm like, who? But that instilled in me the responsibility to represent my family and do right by that and be a good steward and hopefully give back and do good things. And so again, I take a lot of pride, and I inherited that from her as an individual. And so I want to thank Valley College for hosting us today. I see my cousin Gwen is here, my Aunt Dorothy's here. From the McQueen side of the family, she's always been known as Aunt Martha. Thank you guys for being here today. I appreciate that. We all do. We love you. We're family. But thank you, Valley College, and Diane, I know she's here. Yes, thank you for hosting us today and letting us share with you just some insights and thoughts about who she was to us. And I'll close with the other side of politics. Those election dinners, remember that? Les Rendezvous? And how nervous we always were, because I swear George won by like 3 votes every year. No matter how great he was as an individual, no matter how much he was on the right side, it was always tight, and it got tighter. And I don't even know how he would if he was nervous, it didn't seem like it to me, because we could barely eat. He's like, oh, don't worry, we got it. And we'd mosey on down to the campaign office, and Bobby and your son would be in the back running the numbers, and my God, he's right. You know, he's won by 500 votes or 1,000, whatever it might have been. It may have been represented in percentage, but it wasn't a lot of people. Like, hey, make sure you guys all vote in the family, because otherwise, it's not going to happen. And so I think about that and the impact it had, and I talk to people all the time. They ask me about that experience, having met, as Mondo and Danielle did, living in D.C. for a while, senators and hosting dinners at the House, fundraisers, having met 3 presidents. Those are things that are amazing experiences that people simply don't ever have, and I'm lucky enough to have called that my family and my mom. So thank you all for coming today. I appreciate that. And we're all soaking in these pictures, because that's who she's always been, and that's who she'll be in our mind and in our hearts. So thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
So when Marta was raising 3 sons, I was raising 2 sons and a daughter, and they're in similar age groups, and so we had stories. I can tell you that. Yeah. Next, I'd like to introduce the director of the George Brown Legacy Project. Be a little tough because he's in Mexico. So I think we have a video. Oh, and you are ready? Go to it.
Hello, I'm Hans Johnson, director of the George Brown Legacy Project, and I want to thank Gloria Harrison and Valley College for hosting this incredible send-off and tribute to the late Marta Brown. The George Brown Legacy Project, for the last 13 years, has helped organize and open the George Brown Archives at the University of California, Riverside. And this spring, we're proud to announce the George Brown and Marta Brown Fellowship to use those archives, opened in November of 2016 at the Rivera Library at UCR. This fellowship, which is accepting applications now, will close on May 1st, and information about how to apply is circulating at the event. I want to thank Gloria Harrison for her steadfast leadership in making the Marta Brown Scholarship at Valley College a reality, and also helping us achieve this long overdue recognition for the late Rep. George Brown and his wife, Marta Brown, who did so much for civil rights, environmental justice, quality of life, and a more interconnected world, upward and outward from the inland region of California. Please take a moment to spread the word about the George Brown and Marta Brown Fellowship and its support for up to $2,000 of a research grant to use the George Brown archives for any project touching on in the environment, education, or equality affecting the inland region. Thank you very much.
On the table, you'll find this card, and it'll explain to you how to participate in the fellowship program. Finally, I'm going to introduce another very good friend, and Marta's Hermana, and also a trustee of this college, Marta Macias Harrison.
I too have to hold this. and most likely I won't be behind the podium because the podium is almost taller than I am. So thank you all for being here today. But I want to talk about Martha that I grew up with. And so many people thought we were twins until she started to grow taller than I was. That was a disastrous day. But Martha is responsible for giving me my nickname that a few people still use because she couldn't say Gloria, so she called me Yoya. So a few people still call me Yoya. I'm looking over there. But Martha is a person who was very determined. We come from modest, very modest family. And one of the things that we learned as we were growing up was that we had to make use of every resource. Our dad, who was really our uncle, because Martha and I were reared by a uncle and a grandmother. So he could make 10 cents out of a nickel. And so we learned to be very frugal. But one of the things that I think that I remember most about Martha is her determination. When she set a goal for herself, she got it done. And that meant she's the first one who got a boyfriend. She's the first one who got married. She's the first one who had a child. I mean, give me a break. So my sister was such a determined person. She also was the first one to learn to drive, even though I was taking the driving lessons, right? So, and we both loved school so much because it was so different from our home life, and we got to explore and learn. And I will say that our father, our guardian, was really a tough guy. He was a tough guy, but he made sure that we had books, that we read the newspaper on a regular basis, and that we could discuss anything at the table. We just didn't have any physical freedom to work out with boys, but can't be perfect. So I remember that she went through, since she was the first one to get married, it was difficult for her to finish her college education. And so Armando was born on the day that she was supposed to take a final. And so I was delegated as the person to go talk to her professor at Cal State so that she could have a makeup final, right? So, but she embodied the type of student that a community college really is out there for. Modest means, the ability to get an education while, working and living at home, and having family, right? So she embodied all of that. She got her BA from Cal State San Bernardino, and you'd think that she would be anxious to get home to the boys. Well, she was. But she was one of the founders of UMAS, which is a precursor to MECHA, United Mexican American Students at Cal State. And her career, went from organizing things at a local level to getting an appointment later on to as a public member of the state bar. So she was able to expand all of her knowledge and get and learn. She's a learner. She was a learner. Stubborn as hell, but a learner. And so she made a lot of connections. So I think about this modest person, right? And when I mean modest, my sister did not like the barullo. And the barullo is all the flim-flam stuff that we have to go to when we're involved in any kind of public life. She hated that. But she did it. She did it, and she did it well. And so she was determined to make sure that things ran smoothly and that the people on staff knew what they were doing and that they were supported. And I think that's important. So here you have this modest person who had to work summers cutting apricots in the sheds of Hemet in order to earn her school clothes, going to getting her degrees, getting involved in the community. She, by the way, she was the campaign manager, not campaign manager, but the office manager for the Bobby Kennedy campaign on Mount Vernon years and years ago. And so then she goes on to work for the Office on Aging. She taught some adjunct classes for both Valley and Chafee. She went on to work for, I think she even did a small time of working at Patton, which I think is the best way to educate anybody who goes into public life. But anyway, it really is, it really is. But then she wound up on a state appointment, and so her influence and what she learned was statewide. And then when she was married to George, of course it expanded to a national level. And then they did some traveling, official traveling overseas, a lot of that. So my sister learned all of this, and through all of this, she didn't change. And when you talked about, I miss her dearly, because every day I have a little something that I want to share with her, some political chisme. She was the only one I trusted to be able to indulge myself in that chisme, because I don't do it publicly, right? And would understand who the players were, right? Who would understand who the players were. And so I miss her for that. I miss her for that. But through all this time, she was very humble. She was very committed to things. And the reason that I think George and she was such a great partnership, they shared the same values. So up to almost her death, she was still watering her garden. And I don't know, if you look on your table, there's some packages of seeds for you to take home. Grow your garden, right? There's a picture up there, conservation was important to them. The Salton Sea, which is still a mess, was important to them. Air quality, water, all of those things were important to them. And the ability to support people, to give them opportunities. I have to say we in this sense, we are very, very grateful for the opportunities that were offered to us. I mean, we can complain about hard life on the west side of San Bernardino and all of that kind of stuff, but I have to tell you that great opportunities were there. Not only, and my dad used to say that the best teachers were at home, and those were the values and that we portrayed. So we had to help people. We had to help our community. I remember my grandmother being scolded by my other uncles, saying, because we lived close to the railroad yard on the west side of San Bernardino, my grandmother would always feed the hobos that would come along, because they marked the houses that were receptive to that. And she would get scolded. Why are you doing that? It's dangerous. Da 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 da. And she said, "You never know. It might be God testing you. It might be God testing you." So that was her, and that was instilled in us. Community service, helping the neighborhood. And the neighborhood for my sister just grew and grew and grew. And so I can't tell you how much I really miss her, because yesterday I had some great chisme, and I didn't have anybody to share it with. So Miguel, you may be getting a Danielle, you too. So, and we're already making bets on who and what's going to happen, right? But before I finish, I want to thank the chef and all the students from the culinary arts program. Can I take home a baggie? Please, okay. And Heather Ford. Heather, where are you? From the Office of the Chancellor. She's the Senior Executive Assistant. And none of this would be possible without Angel. Angel, where are you? There you are. I can call him at the last minute and he gets it done. He gets it done, and he does such a marvelous job. I'd also like to point out that one of the things, when we're talking about opportunities, my sister received several scholarships. And you know how life is. Little things change and you have to adjust to all of that. She greatly believed that the scholarships that she received, that she used here at Valley College, were essential to her finish her education. They were the opportunities provided by community groups and community individuals for students. And so that's the best way that I know to honor my sister and to provide opportunities for other students, lifelong learners. So there's a table back there if anybody wants to make a donation, and I'm taking names. No, I'm not. I don't know what happens to me when you give me a mic. I'm sorry. But the other thing, of course, is the Legacy Project. And this, we originally thought that we would do this and do fellowships in public policy. But then we remembered that the issues that were important, the issues that were terribly important and part of the core of what Martha and George represented was the environment, was social justice, was education, constant education and opportunities. And I know she and I talked one day about the different jobs we had had over our careers. You would not believe the jobs that we've had, but we were extremely grateful to the community that offered them to us, that offers jobs part-time or fellowships or internships in the community for people to learn. And so we hope that we will be able to keep this scholarship going way beyond. And for students, right now it's a scholarship. It's a scholarship for continuing students. And we did that specifically, not students who are transferring, because we know how difficult it is sometimes. Students will complete their first year and then find it difficult to continue. So we wanted that was important to us. And so that's what we're doing. Right now it's a $500 scholarship. We hope to add to it so that it becomes $1,000. Because life is tough for our students right now. So anyway, thank you so much for coming. On behalf of the family, I'm glad to see you here. Okay, Easter is the next one. Okay, potluck, you know what you have to bring. Okay, all right. So thank you so much.
Where's my guy? Oh, I got it. I figured it out finally. Thank you, Gloria, for sharing those moments with us. And as Gloria's just said, please consider supporting the student scholarships. I think we have enough information and people in the room to help you see the wisdom of that. Before we conclude, Gloria has Marta, see, slip of the tongue. Before we conclude, I'd like to take a moment on behalf of Gloria and the family to thank San Bernardino Community College District Chancellor Diana Rodriguez, who we've already recognized, but let's do it again. And the San Bernardino Valley College for hosting tonight's celebration. Yep. Now, join us for refreshments and fellowship so we can do some more family things. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.